Fallout is a freaking awesome series of games, set within a post-apocalyptic world with energy weapons, big explosives, crazy creatures, and a giant robot that shouts American propaganda at you while chucking nukes at your enemies like footballs. However, despite the sheer radness of these games, no pun intended, a lot of people have felt that the quality of them over the years has significantly declined. Not me though, I love them. So Bethesda, if you sponsor people or anything, I know you invite people to like the E3 and stuff, I'd love to go. Just know I had your back from the beginning. I love this series, so just keep that in mind. However, despite what this video is going to be about, I actually really like Fallout 4, and I'm a pretty big fan of Fallout 76 too. Frickin' sue me. But like I just said, a lot of people don't, and I've always had questions as to why. But now I've got the answers, people. So let's get into it. Alright, so I know I said I didn't have any personal issues, but let's start this off with a personal issue. The melee in Fallout 4 sucks. Compared to all the other Fallout games, it just feels extremely slow. I mean, look at me swinging this super sledge in New Vegas. Notice the swiftness, the elegance, the absolute fluidity between swings. Just exquisite. Now let's take a look over at Fallout 4. I've got the same weapon, but look at that. Look how slow and sludgy that looks. It's got a rocket on the back of it. Swing like it. Just for a further comparison, I took a video of me swinging a Dragonbone Warhammer in Skyrim. You know, the heaviest weapon in that game. I mean, look at this compared to Fallout. Swift and elegant. Slow and boring. Swift and elegant. Slow and boring. Swift and elegant. I mean, what the hell happened here, people? Now to counter this, you could make a VATS-based melee build, which is way easier now considering the addition of the Blitz perk. And don't get me wrong, Blitz is pretty cool, but when you combine it with the slowness of the melee weapons, as well as the fact that their damage can be way too high with weapon modification, you're going to be overusing the shit out of it. Every piece of combat in the game is just going to turn into Fallout 1 and 2. It's turn-based now. You walk into the room, target every enemy, click a button, and watch a cutscene of them all dying. It is right back to sucking. Originally, I personally thought all this was because id Software designed the combat mechanic, which would make sense as to why the melee all feels like you're punching in a first-person shooter. However, while doing research for this video, I learned that id Software did not design the combat mechanics. They only designed the shooting mechanics, and even with that, it seems they were most likely just consultants and didn't actually design anything. That means there's no excuse for this, Bethesda, so I ask again, what the hell happened here? I'm still on your guys' side. I'm still gonna back you guys up. I had to get that out of the way real quick. I'm sorry. All right, let's move on. All right, now, unlike my last point, I'm actually going to be defending Bethesda on this one because I personally hate the talking point that Fallout 4's enemies are so much weaker than all of the previous games. Sticking to the smaller enemies for now, no one should be denying that they all move way better because of being made on a newer engine, which automatically makes most of them more intimidating. I already made a video about the rat scorpions, go watch that, but the tunneling ability is the scariest shit in that game. Not to mention the mole rats can do the exact same thing. Then you got the feral ghouls doing this zigzag dash at you while you try to shoot at them unsuccessfully without VATS, of course. Mirelurks are now able to hide in the ground like they're mud crabs, plus they have whatever the fuck this thing is. Y'all guys stay pulling up on me like I'm Rappaport in the Amazon series. Also, I know most of these enemies have always traveled in packs, but I think it's something about the increased speed and agility that's now making it feel like I'm getting jumped every time. And what's up with the alpha mongrels? Those little bitches have way too much health. There's no reason why I should be taking a headshot end of game like it's the matriarch from Quarry Junction. And now that I've brought up packs, Deathclaws, and Quarry Junction, I want to get to Fallout 4's biggest punching bag. You guys like that little segue there? Here's the thing with Deathclaws in Fallout 4. With the right specs and the right gear, they are easy to kill. Obviously, you can one-shot him, and that's about as easy to kill as it gets, right? And to be fair, I don't have a real good rebuttal for that, except for this. Boom! That was raw, bitch. Now look, I'm not saying that one-shotting raw is the most impressive feat in all of gaming, but that is the hardest Deathclaw in New Vegas. That Deathclaw has higher stats than any other one you can find in the game, and I killed it in one shot. That's because on their own, the death claws in none of the games are all that hard. The biggest intimidating factor of the death claws in New Vegas is the huge packs you can find them in, especially at Quarry Junction, which is the reason why everyone blows it so hard. Imagine there being a place in Fallout 4 where there was like 20 death claws. You'd get caught in a loop of them doing that thing where they just pick you up and slam you down, and all the other ones would be clawing on you, and then it would just boom, next one, boom, next one, boom, next one. It would be a nightmare. And with that point made, there are so many more larger enemies in the game now than just Deathclaws and Behemoths sometimes. You have Mirelurk Queens, which are extremely intimidating on their own, not to mention when they have a bunch of Mirelurks with them. Then if you add the DLCs, you've got Fog Crawlers, Hermit Crabs, and the Gator Claws, plus some more shit I'm probably forgetting right now. Point is, the game isn't exactly desperate for very tough, large enemies. And look, I'm not denying that with the weapon and armor modification system and the lack of a level cap, it doesn't take away a little bit from the difficulties of enemies. But isn't that what you want at the end of the game? You've put all this work in to make an extremely overpowered character, and you want the game to still be hard? Isn't that what people didn't like about Oblivion? You can do all the side quests, and the main story feels even harder than if you hadn't. So that's enough of that point. But yeah, if you're really feeling like they're weak, bump it up to survival, bro. All right, let's hop off of defense now. Okay, Bethesda, I'm a level with you. When it comes to immersion, you guys, you kind of sold the bag with this one. Fallout had the most immersive mechanic to ever exist in any game ever, and that was the karma system, ladies and gentlemen. And they got rid of that. And that to me is the worst atrocity that Bethesda has committed onto this series. I mean, anybody who's ever played Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas knows just how much it gave to those games. It was perfect.
Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
For those of you that don't know, let me explain it for you. In Fallout 3, karma worked more like a moral compass. Certain characters aligned to a place on that moral compass, and the more you aligned with them, the more that they liked you, and vice versa. Sounds pretty basic, I know, but it was an extremely awesome mechanic, especially when it came out. Fallout New Vegas then improved upon this mechanic by giving every character a faction that they were a part of. Karma was more your affiliation with those factions, and the more a faction liked you, the more the characters linked to that faction would also like you, and vice versa. New Vegas also did have a more general karma system that was more moral based, but it wasn't used as much in changing the gameplay and NPC interaction as much as the faction one was. And see, the main thing that taking this away gets rid of within the games is how much all the NPCs react to everything your character does, every side quest, and especially every piece of the main quest. I mean, seriously, these people in Fallout 4 switch up on their beliefs and ideals at the whim of me turning in a mission. This is not the world where people change how they look on you based on what you do. Instead, in this world, people change what they believe based on what you do. Okay, so putting it that way, it sounds a little cool, but it's not. Trust me. I mean, for real, just because I'm the leader of the Institute now, suddenly synths are allowed within Diamond City? Why? You don't know me. The last guy was my son. You had a massacre and a mayor get replaced. People, stand up for yourselves. But all of this is a part of one major issue that Bethesda's had for a long time that seems to have just gotten worse, which is the illusion of choice. And in Fallout 4, it is atrocious. For starters, every single dialogue tree only has 4 options, and most of the time, those 4 options aren't even really different options, so much as just different tones to say the same exact thing. And when they are different options, they basically just boil down to yes or no. However, this no is never real. It's never true. You can tell them no, but they'll always just give you the quest. They'll always just give you the quest. I'm talking about you, Preston. I'm the general of the Minutemen. I shouldn't have to do these things. Add this with taking away the karma system and only having one-track quest lines, and you can see why a lot of people feel like the Bethesda games now are less immersive than the original Pac-Man games. But speaking of stories with only one-track quest line, let's move on. One of the biggest gripes I see a lot of people have with Fallout 4 is that its story is nowhere near as compelling as New Vegas is. And I'm not going to really offer a defense against this. I mean, that is just a personal opinion, and I am not going to start here shit Vegas' storyline. I personally think it's amazing. But there is a real issue with Fallout 4's storyline, And it isn't that it's bad, it's that it's a copy of Fallout 3's completely flipped onto its head. Even the DLCs Nuka World and Far Harbor are eerily similar to Point Lookout and the Pit. But if you don't believe me about the similarities in their stories, check it out. In Fallout 3, you're rushed into a vault as a child by your father to protect you from the outside. Your mother dies and your father disappears, and you have to go looking for him. Once you find him, you find out he's been working all this time on a scientific endeavor portrayed as ultimately good. There's a group of other scientists who work on this endeavor with him, and in the end, dies, leaving the future status of his life's work in your hands. Now, in Fallout 4, you play a father who rushes his family into a vault to protect them from the outside. Your wife dies, and your son is kidnapped, so you go looking for him. Once you find him, you find out he's been working all this time on a scientific endeavor portrayed as ultimately bad. He has a group of other scientists who work on this endeavor with him, one of them the exact same person your dad had, and finally, in the end, he dies and leaves the future status of his life's work in your hands. See what I mean? Also, the point I made in the last part is most prevalent in the story in this game. Throughout New Vegas, every quest you do for the story has optional ways of handling it that change the way the game ends in slight or major ways. Every faction has a different ending. In Fallout 4, your character's only real option is who you want to win, and that's basically it. You have no options on how you want them to win, with optional objectives or a bunch of different factions that you can either side with or fight against. Now add an already held opinion that the story is worse, you can probably see why a whole lot of people like New Vegas a lot more. And that's pretty much all I've got to say about it. From what I've seen, these things seem to be the main stuff people bring up when they talk about why they don't like Fallout 4 as much. But as much is a big point I want to make. I think most fans of the series, even people who are bigger fans of 3 and New Vegas, would admit that they probably play Fallout 4 more than they play most non-Fallout games because it's still a good game in general. It's just whether it's true to Fallout that is to be contended. Besides, chin up, people. At least we know the newer games will never be as bad as the real piece of shit in this series. Alright, later, nerds.